Hey there, I think you know what time it is. It's time for more Drummer Daily. My name's Daniel Hadaway. I'm the drum coach, and I am also your host here on Drummer Daily. Thank you for joining me. This is episode number 149. Anything that I mentioned in today's episode will be available at danielhadaway.com/149. So, I am sitting behind my drum set right now, and in fact, I've realized I've got my hi-hat cymbals open right now, and I try to always detach the clutch so that they're not resonating and ringing while I'm recording this, so I just did that. But I'm sitting behind my drum kit, as I do most of the time when I record this podcast. It's my place of zen, my happy place, and so here I am. So I've got another question from a listener today. This one comes in from Jody. And this is an excellent question with some excellent answers, hopefully. But Jody says, tell me why producers, etc. in the music business would want to call someone 6 or 7 hours away when they can just pick up the phone and have somebody live in the studio in less than 15 or 30 minutes. I know we have the internet and all, but being in person is always so much better. So Jody, I believe, is referring to, when he mentions the internet, what he's saying is sometimes I talk about the fact that there's a lot of opportunity out there for doing remote recording sessions from your own recording space, or providing drum tracks to people who may not have the means to record it themselves. And so Jody's asking, basically, tell me about why a producer would do that when it seems like they could just call someone who's in town, have them over at the studio, whatever. And so there are a few, that's an excellent question. And I definitely think that the answer to this on the surface is not immediately obvious or apparent. So it is a great question. So the first thing I want to say about that is we have to keep in mind that there are probably tens of thousands across the world of music producers who may have somewhat of a budget to pay a drummer if only they had the ability to record drums where they're working out of. There are so many producers who are doing fairly high profile work out of their home studio. And many producers who don't play drums themselves have no real reason to have a permanent setup for recording drums. It doesn't make sense because a majority of their work is going to be recording guitars or programming keyboards or vocals or other things that don't need the space or don't need all the mics and the gear. There's a lot of things that go into recording drums, and they don't have the need for it, so they just don't have the ability to do it. So if one of these producers happens to live in a city that has a lot of nice studios, maybe they'll pay to rent a studio and then pay to hire a drummer and then schedule it, all those kinds of things. But I want you to keep in mind that most producers don't have all of those check boxes checked off. And so they're going to have someone else record it at their own place. And that's why even here in Nashville, where I live, where there's tons of studios, there are still plenty of drummers who have remote recording setups in their homes. I know of probably 5 or 6, personally I know 5 or 6 who do it and make a living doing it. But even here in Nashville, people have home setups where they're tracking drums. So at a mere like preference level, maybe some producers would prefer to just call somebody who's 15 or 30 minutes away. But the reality is that's not how it works. I have never gotten called with 15 or 30 minutes notice and just dropped what I was doing and gone to the studio. The lowest amount of notice that I've gotten has been probably a few hours. And I was able to drop what I was doing and run to the studio and do it. But that's more of the exception than the rule. And so I wouldn't count on that happening. Most producers, you think about it, most producers are going to have to plan ahead anyway. And a lot of producers, being musician types, are not necessarily the best planners. So if they can just send something to you and say, hey, in the next week or so, can you get this back to me? That's going to be much better for them than them saying, hey, we have to go on this day, set everything up. I have to pay more money to rent a studio. I have to, the pressure's on. I have to have my stuff together by then. There's just a lot more pieces that have to fall into place from an organizational standpoint for a producer to want to do that. Another thing is it's the idea of local economies being different at different levels. So for example, I have done a decent amount of work for a producer and songwriter who lives in Los Angeles. Now I'm in Nashville, but you can imagine in Los Angeles that there are plenty of drummers who are probably just as good as I am, who could do the job just as well as I could, maybe even better. Maybe the sound recording quality would be even better than what I could do. But he still chooses to hire me and do it remote. And part of the reason why he chooses to do that, I know, is that because it costs so much more to hire a drummer in LA than it does someone remote in Nashville, just because the cost of living is different, all the different things that go into the economy in these different locations. So the guy in LA can pay me cheap LA rates, and I can live in Nashville and make a great Nashville rate, and I'm happy because I'm making, more than I would in Nashville, and he's happy because he's paying less than he would have to in LA, and he's getting a great result. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody, and that happens a lot too. It's kind of like outsourcing to another country when you can get the same thing for cheaper, but it's just kind of a little more domestic. So that's another reason why guys do it. And to kind of challenge the perception that this doesn't happen or this why would someone do this, there's two things I want to say. Number one is it's the same question as asking, well, why would I order socks from Amazon when I can just go to the store, go to Walmart or Target or whatever and buy the socks there and have them right now? Well, honestly, for me, most of the time when I decide that I need to buy socks, I'm not thinking I need them right now. I have to have socks right now. It's like, no, I need some socks and it'll be good to get that soon. So for me, the fact that I have to wait a day or two for Amazon to deliver the socks, but I get them for the same or less of a price than what I would do if I had to go to the store. Plus, I don't have to drive to the store and all those things. That makes it much easier for me just to order from Amazon. So it's the question of, well, why would you order online when you can just go to the store and get it? It's the same question. A lot of producers, and I do the same thing. I do the same thing all the time now. I quantify what my time is worth, even when I'm doing things for free that wouldn't necessarily normally get paid for. So I decide, what is my time worth? Is my time worth $20 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever my time is worth? And I say, okay, how long would I spend going to the store to buy this thing? If it would take me an hour round trip between getting in and out, getting in the car, getting ready to go, driving there, walking to the store, waiting in line, coming home, all those pieces, it takes me an hour round trip. Well, that's worth a certain amount of money to me, just the time that I spent doing it. That's not counting the cost of what I bought. So even if it cost me a couple of dollars more to buy it online, it's actually probably worth it to me because I'm saving the time that I would have to spend going and doing it. And a lot of producers think about those same things when they're considering who to hire, where to hire them, things like that. So that's one thing to think of, to keep in mind. And really finally on this issue, the other thing I just want to say is, whether or not we understand why they would or wouldn't do it, I'm not speculating about this happening. This happens. I'm telling you for sure, this happens all the time. People in Nashville hire remote drummers all the time. So whether or not we understand why it happens, as drummers, our customers, our paying customers a lot of time are producers, music producers. And so if our music producers are asking us for a service or a product, it's good business to provide that to them if we see nothing wrong with it. And I see nothing wrong with providing remote recording services to producers. So if I want to make a living, I can do my best to understand why they would or wouldn't want that. But at the end of the day, if they're asking for it and I can provide it, and it's, doesn't conflict with my morals or anything, then I'm going to provide it because that's good business and that's how you make a career. So even if you disagree with everything I've said today, you can't disagree with the fact that it just happens. It does happen. Objectively, the facts are that producers do hire remote drummers. So even if I had no idea why they did it, I do have an idea of why they do it, but even if I didn't know why they did it, I know that they do it. So let that be an encouragement that you have to look for where the opportunity is, even if you don't understand why that opportunity is there. So hopefully this helps you in your drumming career. Look at what it might take to start doing some drum recording on your own. Hey, in the show notes today too, so if you go to danielhadaway.com/149, I'm going to post a link to a recent post that I put up about how you can record an entire drum kit with one mic and actually make it sound pretty darn good. So speaking of kind of doing home recording, I'm going to show you how you could even do it with one mic. And for a lot of musical situations, it would be wonderful. It would sound great just with that one mic. So check that out, danielhadaway.com/149. And the big episode is coming up next, episode number 150. And I've got some special content planned for that. So I'm hoping that you will join me again very soon on Drummer Daily. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.